I deleted the last video in the series. The presentation was horrible. I'm going to represent the info in a new format. But if you do want to see the video, there are many copycat channels, many shadow miners that do upload my videos. Probably see it there. Although I do not endorse any of these channels at all, in any way, shape, or form. So let's take a look at something here. I'd like you to focus here on this circle without the line coming through. Disregard all the other information around it. And what you're going to see is the universal symbol for no, which is relative to what we would see on stop signs, in restaurants, in public places, where they're seeking to quickly convey to the public something is forbidden. No. The circle with the diagonal line drawn through it. Now, what's interesting is because what we already know with this model here, which is basically showing you a diagram of the human head in perspective of the verses from Zechariah chapter 11:17, woe to the idle shepherd, which we understand is leaving the flock. And then now we can see that there's something connected to this Jashin, false bride, this supposed sacred beauty or sacred feminine, which is showing us a particular angle of travel towards something. And when all this comes together here, you should understand if you don't already. So let's take a look at something here. This is basically, in essence, going to really show you the truth of how that left eye looking into a mirror has been reversed, and now is that darkened right eye looking out that has that same objective as the temptation of ye are gods, which is basically best symbolized with the apple in full. And you know what I showed you with the mirror and the diagrams and how that works and the other equations and scriptures that go with it, this will show it to you also. And it will show it to you based against the backdrop of the world that you're already in. So it should make sense. If you see here, the darkened right eye is connected to the left brain, which is all material. And as we said, the people that have been deceived, that have accepted this apple lie of we are gods and see in the reflection only of themselves in anything they look at, spiders, space, technology, they see themselves as God. That's because of the apple. That's the illusion of their own image being reflected back. That's not the image of God. As I said, the image of God isn't material form. The image of God is mercy, compassion, love, forgiveness on a divine scale that exceeds human interpretation or experience, unless in the person of Christ Jesus. So we see that Jesus had warned us that in this time there will be many people coming saying that they are Christ's. And every one of these channels that is associated with this bride, professing bride, wearing hoodies, trying to spin you off on other channels to other people that are trying to make videos almost in the same way that I'm making, in which I've been making the entire time. Now you see that these shadow channels follow after me. They don't have no real inspiration of the Spirit. The only thing that they can do is follow behind one who does, and then seek to create the shadow from the truth of what I'm teaching. And it's going to explain it to you even in their own diagram, their own direction of travel through their own symbols will show you against the backdrop of the entire world that they are immersed in darkness. So if we look at the right eye, I want you to see that this is the same direction of travel that we're going to see here. Now remember the scriptures that are relative. Rev 12, being lifted up, two great wings of an eagle. and that's the diadem of power and authority. Then we go to Zach 5. It's considered now in symbolisms of storks, which is in reference to the baby, the birth. This is about a birthing as Rev 12. Okay? And then we found out that those storks were symbolism for the two ladies of Upper and Lower Egypt, Nekhbet and Watjet, which is symbolized for the caretaking of royal children and, of course, the Pharaoh himself. That would be the son of the sun god, the darkened right eye, Horus. Now, watch how this works. We see this twig from a fallen tree that we now have recognized with the word beam, which we then connected to the moon because it's that path of travel as you're seeing. This is exactly what Jesus Christ's parable was about, with a brother that has the beam in his eye that is about to make a grave error in judgment. So notice the direction of travel, consistent as we see, going once again to the left brain. And this is now being manifested in our world in such a way that they're seeing this material abode as the moon, which is not founded on the dominion of the earth, is being the object of desire. It becomes that apple of their eye, as we showed you a compression of history with the fallen being holding up fire in his right hand, and then in his left hand is that apple. This is going to represent the left hand portion of the brain. Once again, matter. They see everything that is spirit retranslated from the mirror back into a darkened matter form. And it shows you here in this diagram. All right. My point is that what we showed you about the left eye as it looks in the mirror comes over here to the right is going to be true. As it shows you this Jashin remnant, this twig is over here. And then now it is going to this blue location, which is the moon, which they've been bringing water there. There's a problem. The moon is both dark and light, which fulfills itself as the symbol of the apple that was offered with divided knowledge of good and evil. And that's where our diagram will come into play. So I need you to think. If you know people that are involved in this, you're most likely got people in your family that are involved in these philosophies. As you can see, there's a lot of young people that are professing this false bride hoopla, and then there are just tons and tons and tons and tons of people that are Luciferian and satanic in their doctrines that are still all about this. If you can't see that those forces are working together as one, but yet have fractured themselves, at least in the image that they present to YouTube, you might be blind. And what I'm trying to show is that these people that are in this, they're all blind, and it's going to show you that they're in absolute darkness. Back to the symbol. That circle right there, now you could see as the left eye, right? Because it's the crossing. Remember, ancient times, this planet is considered the planet of crossing. It ain't got nothing to do with Nibiru. All right? Nothing to do with Nibiru. That is just another psyops front to deceive their own lower initiates so that this plan can be brought forth that hides truly where these supposed meteors and asteroids are coming from, the dark side of the moon, which are not going to be meteors or asteroids. They're basically going to be missiles, if you will, dirty bombs that have specific targets that they have already pre-designated to hit hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And we see that as a ready-made location off the east coast of the United States, New York City. How is a meteor or asteroid going to figure out where exactly it's got to go? Well, Jesus Christ tells us it's the high hand of Ephraim, who is planted in a pleasant place. That's from the book of Hosea. I think it's chapter 9, verse 13. Might be wrong about that. I know it's in Hosea. But the high hand of Ephraim is planted in a pleasant place while he seeks to bring his children to the murder. That's twofold. His children of the nation, and then his children of the select elect remnant, bringing them to the murder, which would be this dark son of the sun we know as whore us, but he's not whoring us. He's only whoring them out as this Jashin bride of the widow that's known as the harlot, conveniently here dressed in all black. Of course, she's of darkness and chaos, which is now going to bring us back here. Because at the same time that this is the universal symbol for no, okay, no admittance, we see it's the symbol for the empty set, which is the set that contains nothing. Okay. I see that there was a time outage. It's frustrating. It's hard for me to think and then focus on what I'm looking at and then keep watching this clock. So I'm just going to move forward here. Symbol for the empty set, which is a set that contains nothing. Notice that the angle for the symbol that is universal, at least from the perspective of this world out, as they've been taught, is running this angle. What do we find that is at that angle? Well, it's the supposed eye of illumination that we see is connected to the right hemisphere of the brain, as using it as the dominant portion of reality discernment. Now, even though we see that we're talking about two hemispheres of the brain, for the majority of the world, you're still using both hemispheres. It's just one has been made dominant over the other. And that's going to be in reflection of this right hand being the thing that was forced throughout the educational system in our past, which means they sought to force children to use the right hand. We know that this right hand is connected to the left hemisphere of the brain, which is all materially blinded, which now makes the populace readily susceptible to the material propaganda that's coming through the tell, lie vision to make you sit calm while they program you with more sitcoms that are then laced with their doctrines in the subconscious, and then the peoples begin to imitate and act out what they see. And then therefore the world is translated by a reflection of a reflection into an abomination. And this is all by a plan of the sophistication of a high spirit being. It's not really by the plan of men. They just happen to fall in place to this by what they're looking to as God. So now look, the illuminated left eye, all right, that's the right brain, faith, feeling, spirit. You see the world in the correct perspective. The material, you're seeing things backwards if you're not realizing that the spirit is the dominant force, not the material. You don't translate the spirit world from a material point of view. You translate the material world from a spiritual point of view. As you see, nobody is over here. And then that universal symbol will show you that. But I showed you how even their own initiates are being tricked into looking into the mirror, seeing the reflection of themselves in the world around them, being symbolized at best with the apple. And then this reflection reverses, and then now the right eye is the left eye in reverse, staring back out at the world. This will show you the truth of that. This will show you the truth of that. So looky here. Universal? No. No one is permitted to go over here and entertain the right brain potential, as it would be the leading dominator of this left brain. Exactly right. Nobody is allowed to go over there. So by consequence, we see that the light that the sun shines on this side of the moon is darkened, because you know that's the darkened right eye. Now, not in relative terms, but you see this is the switch of the mirror. So as you see now, the moon is double. It's both light and dark. Well, the moon just happens to reflect the light of the unseen sun. Okay? It does. But they reject that and they go to the dark side. The bigger picture here is that they actually reject the sun itself that's at the center of our solar system. Now, you would have to do some very deep research into this understanding of what they believe has taken place in the past, that there has been a new sun added that they then seek to fulfill the philosophy of Jesus Christ as that, as the false sun. And then they symbolize our sun at the center of our solar system as that. And then they believe that light has had an effect on matter, which is stopping them from becoming gods. And that the great work in essence is to retransmutate that matter into what they believe is that godlike estate. It's pretty far out there, right? But nonetheless, it is the driving force for this great work to create a golden age. My point is that you see it in the universal symbol to where they are absolutely saying, no, nobody goes over here. And now you see that their own initiates look in the mirror and are put back over here to the side. And now you see, yes. And then now that is the darkened right eye, which is in representation of the darkened son of the sun god, which we also know in a Sumerian interpretation as Enki. And then there we see that darkness represented as the bride going to the moon in perfect assemblage, without a doubt. But you see, it's the blinded left brain perception, which we now see is actually blinded to any light that is coming from the true sun, okay, by saying no admittance to this truth. We have shrouded it in a mystery and then sent everybody else on a wild goose chase. And that would be this right here. Now this is in perspective of the highest of the spirit beings that have orchestrated this. And then we see the men enact these philosophies, but in reality they don't see the overlay of the truth that reveals that this is not what truth is. This is not what truth is. Even in your own anatomical structure, it's telling you that's not what truth is. Once again, that's just darkened matter. And as I said, they've rejected a portion of themselves. They've been taught to. Well, that would be in reflection of the life-giving light of the solar system, which they have been made to believe is not good, and that they're looking to another sun. Now, this would play out between Jupiter and Saturn, of which two of these gaseous giant balls would fulfill in their philosophy of being the sun. I'm not exactly sure which one that they see as the sun. It's definitely confusing, there's no doubt. Jupiter is what Nibiru translates from in the ancient Sumerian. Jupiter. That's what Nibiru means. Look it up. I can show it to you. I can show it to you right here in a book. Let's just clear that up for a moment. This moon here represents the apple. Okay, remember that knowledge of good and evil. I want you to see this perspective developing. There's the apple, as I said, that becomes the object of desire that was started here, and then now we see this whole thing is pushed forward into our future, so we're seeing exactly what took place. Well, there it is. Remember, the apple is the knowledge of good and evil. There you go, if you like that. Okay, so it's the knowledge of good and evil. We see that the moon is both light and dark. There you go. It's the fractal manifestation of that same temptation. As it was in the beginning of sin, so shall it be in the end of sin. And we see they are going there because they're thinking they're going to be transfigured, transmutated, if you want to say alchemical state, but in a spiritual state, it would be a transfiguration. But we see nothing's going to happen there, but really an obliteration, an oblivion. Okay, it's going to be made a desolate waste once again. And as I said, the majority of these prophecies where the true seers and prophets saw a destruction for Babylon, it's not taking place here on this world. It's taking place on the moon. The moon becomes the new Babylon. The moon becomes the new capital. The moon becomes what Lot's wife looked back at, because Babylon is now on the moon as a capital, and you guys have just been kept from all of their luxuries and glories that they have built over there. This is where they've been hiding all that great technology at, so that we don't see it in our world. This is where it went. And then now they have created a place for only the special privilege to work towards, which becomes their heaven, their Elysium, their oblivion. And I'm telling you, it's been going on for thousands and thousands of years, right on the backside of the moon. That's the new Babylon. So when they're coming in and out of the field, going to and fro from the earth, to and fro from the moon to the earth. What Jesus Christ is saying, what Jesus Christ is saying is that Lot's wife has looked back. She has looked back from here, and that now she is going back as she's been warned about this Sodom and Egypt place, this new capital, this new Shinar, this ecclesiastical Babylon. She's looking back, and she is going to be made into that pillar of stone all over again, and which is the suggestive reasoning of what they're going to do to us. But I said every action has an opposite, and every action has an equal yet opposite reaction. So the equal to that action is bad for bad, and then the opposite of that action is what you put out is going to come back in, plain and simple. And the Spirit's warning them in probably the most effective way yet that I think can reach the majority here, because that's the universal symbol. As you see, the tempter, the rebel of this universe, has made this a declaration of no all over the world. And as you see, the symbology is going over here to the right brain and getting some spiritual understanding about you, getting some light about you where there is no dark side, where there is no mixing of darkness. Okay, but they've created contorted philosophies, as I said, with a displaced sun to make all of that appear as this is the dark and shadowy other one. And then this is why they reject the light that this unseen sun reflects on the moon, and now they only take the shadow again, and forsaking the truth of the light that is here and rejecting it and seeking to make the darkness double so that they feel whole. So the double darkness would be this dark side of the moon being doubled up with the dark side here. This is going to fulfill their darkness as a double. Let's see here. I want to show you about how Nibiru is in Sumerian relative to the planet Jupiter. I want you to know that I've got a video up called Nibiru Orbital Deception, in which I do understand that there is an ancient system of this binary star system to our sun, absolutely, but we don't have anything to do with it right now in this time with it causing any sort of destruction. Matter of fact, it's actually stabilized a long time ago, and they're using this ancient history as a deception to fool even their own people, and then set up for the masses the propaganda with these meteors or asteroids being connected to it. Okay, so look what we have in ancient Sumerian for Nibiru. Neberu. Crossing place. Is that not what Nibiru is supposed to be? The planet of crossing? And then we see name of the planet Jupiter. Right there. Look, Gilgamesh is depicted as a judge. What was Samson? A judge. What are Danites? What does the name Dan mean? Judge. Right there. Agents gone crazy. They're scrambling. They don't know what to do. So, Nibiru, crossing place. And as I said, there it is. There's your crossing place. That's what it's all about. This planet's been double crossed a long time ago. And as I said, the doubling of this cross is the sacred geometry, which is going to reflect two portions of the dark side. As we see, the dominion on earth is in righteousness and in truth that has already been given to man, but we see that the devil needs to take this dominion, in other words, making this a dark side. This has been the chief vantage point of his dominion to make that take place, to create the transmutation over here, to not revert this into gold as they've been thought, but this is reverting this into darkness. Jesus Christ says, the one sin that's not going to be forgiven is those that blaspheme the Holy Ghost. Well, if you understand what the Holy Ghost is, that's a bad term for it, because ghost represents something that's dead. What we would say would be spirit, the infinite spirit. Once you understand what the infinite spirit is, it pervades all space. All space. So this is what Jesus Christ is talking about when he says that even a lily has more glory than that of the wisest man on earth, Solomon. And it's not due to the lily itself in a code of Lilith. It's due to the infinite spirit which is infused in all things. Now, in order for them to create their dark matter, right? And then in order to create this world in darkness, you see that's what CERN is working on. Okay? And then that would be to blaspheme the infinite spirit out of this habitation of matter that Jesus Christ calls the temple. Okay? So when they're going to actually blast us here from the moon, in the big picture of it is that they are blaspheming the infinite spirit, and that they will not be forgiven for that. Those men that are in direct relationship to that red button, so to say. And we know that doesn't mean that they're going to be annihilated, most certainly not, but it does mean that the forgiveness will not come forth from that, for that blaspheming of the Holy Ghost. Now it goes from the micro to the macro. Now we see a blaspheming, which is being given the go on, the yes, and then the truth is being given the no on. This is what the devil has denied. As I said, he made one knowledge evil. It's the universal symbol for no, which tells you the direction to the right brain. So you see that they're trying to revert this darkness and connect it to this darkness over here. As I said, I've shown the shadow on this side because they reject that light. Even though that it is truly over there, they're still going to reject it and dwell in the darkness. That's all right there. And then that's the path for your Jashin bride. That's the path for your Jashin bride right there. Right there. Interesting. Now, as you know, Jesus Christ said, the kingdom is God, the kingdom of God is within you. So we don't have to go anywhere to get right here. Anywhere. That light is already shining forth from our heart if you don't reject it. So you don't have to go anywhere. And as I've showed you before, with this diagram right here, the sun travels the straight and narrow. But as it's viewed from the observer on the earth, who is now so much stuff for me. Hold on. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I got so much stuff in my room. So much stuff to show you that is real, that I'm just gonna take the time to do it. Got a timeout coming up here at 22nd mark of the 30-minute mark. I'm gonna try to focus and not say things during that period. My point is this is where you'll see the observer on Earth is wobbling, because the Earth has been knocked in our past. As I said, that is reflective of Anunnaki, and then the negative term that someone would say in our time if you have gotten a woman pregnant, You say, oh man, I knocked her up. And then we get the firstborn son from Cain and the daughters of Nod. You see recorded in our ancient past that Earth has been knocked, and has been knocked conveniently to a 23-degree tilt, which now will tell you, if you've got eyes to see, who is going to the dark side of the moon. All right? There's your beam that Jesus Christ is talking about that is in their eye, which represents that temptation that now makes the apple, the moon, the apple of their eye, which is now reflective of both the light and dark knowledge that was offered in Eden. But as you see, they accept that because they have a Gnostic view on reality, to where everything is dualistic in nature and that it takes chaos to unite it. No, it only takes faith. And they're not dualistic. It's good for good. And that the bad is merely void. The only time that you can experience bad is if it's been manifested by your free will as the rejection of what's truth and right. And this is why we see so much of it's manifest, because the truth and right has been rejected. We see it's the universal symbol denying everyone as he sees fit. But as we see with Jesus Christ, these are united. Those are united. And we're not the ones that are here on this darkened path that are seeking to go for that temptation all over again. And you can see who is. You can see who is. So let's take a look here for a moment, which will explain what I told you about the son and the deeper mystery of them rejecting a son, and then the deeper mystery of how they can even see Jesus Christ as a serpent, or that they can reject Jesus Christ and then try to uphold a serpent in place of his wisdom. It'll all be right here. So if the earth had been knocked in the past, we got the Anunnaki. It's all on a 23-degree tilt in our axis, and then you get the Anunnaki knocking up the daughters of men. The firstborn son is called Enoch, and it's on 23. I mean, you know, can't really stop that from what it is. And now what it tells you is that the earth is experiencing a wobble. This wobble, if I'm correct, is or this leap year, which is in relationship to the rabbit symbolism, which I think is every 23 years, if I'm correct. Again, 23 Enigma, symbolized with the rabbits. It's to correct the calendar against this wobble, which is interesting, because we find out that it's this very wobble itself which is going to cause the observer from Earth to view the sun as a snaking serpent, and which you now know is what judges all of their astrology, in which they think that Jesus Christ is saying that that is what they're supposed to do. And matter of fact, he's saying, no, that's not what you're supposed to do at all. And it's because of that men, the stars are the stars, but it is the fallen that have created the mythology to the stars to reflect a history that is relative to only their perception. And now we see men follow this thinking that that's all God's diagrams. No, it's just diagrams of the fallen that have been given to the men so that they could track through the stars the timing of this sevenfold times 70 generations ceiling point. All right? So the whole astrology thing is connected to a snaking serpent through the sky that is supposedly our sun. Well, that's wrong. Once again, it's your observation. And that's why Jesus says the kingdom of God cometh not with observation. All right? It's within you. So now let's look at this. This would be the ecliptic, that band in the night sky that we see the signs in essence are based upon. It would be, in all reality, a straight line that the sun makes against the sky. But because the earth is wobbling from being knocked in the past, we see that the observer now views the sun as snaking up and down. Very easy to see how we get the sun worship symbol associated with the serpent in ancient times. This is where Jesus Christ is talking about those that are hot and cold. This would be the summer solstice point, the highest point of the sun, the winter solstice, the lowest point. And then those that are entertaining these doctrines of following the crooked path are going from hot to cold, cold to hot. We know that this also represents in a higher form that those are going to and fro all over the earth from the moon and back, because the dark side of the moon is cold. As you saw the reflection, they're rejecting the light side because they're going to be seen, because they've got to be secretive. Okay, so they're only entertaining the dark side. All of that is very cold over there, and you'll even see that being conveyed in their symbolisms and even their songs as they talk about it. So let's get back to this here. This also turns into the symbol for the caduceus, right? And then once they double that, it symbols the DNA strand, the helix. But notice that they symbolize this for the masses as only one serpent coming up a rod, which in essence they're trying to tell the masses that they only have half of something, and that when they use it in their hermetic seal of the caduceus, the rod, they show two serpents. Well, what I've already showed you, that's just the reflection of the same image again, making them think they're whole. Okay? It's just the same thing. That's what the sacred geometry is. So in reality, if they're uniting dualistic polarities, you shouldn't see a serpent at all united with another serpent. That's the same polarity again. In other words, that's the backward reflection of itself in the mirror. So now that you know that the earth has been knocked and that it's the faulty observer, once again, that is judging the things of God with his own faulty observation from a material view, and that would be from the earth. In reality, the sun makes the straight and narrow. Okay? So this is known as the sun going along the ecliptic, or the ingress of the sun along the ecliptic against the declination, how high or how low. Okay? So there's a lot of stuff here to see here, but this tells you that between both of their philosophies, they see the sun as a serpent, in which would be relative to Enki being represented as the serpent that they're lifting up in the wilderness, which, as you know, Moses was ordered in essence to make a brazen serpent upon a rod. That is the symbolism of it. That's the symbolism of the physician that Jesus Christ is talking about when he says, "Though that be whole need not a physician." Need not a physician. They've been tricked into thinking they were whole. And as you see, they are not in perspective of the truth of the Spirit. They are being given the go to be in perspective of the lie of the Spirit based upon a darkened matter interpretation. It's right there. It's right there. So when we see this being the symbol for empty set here, universally, which is the set that contains nothing, notice that this is going to, in symbolage of the sun, that is in symbolage of all light, that is in symbolage of right brain. Universally, everybody's being denied that. That's what it says. But you've got to think about this when it starts saying empty, and then it says contains nothing. Did you know that that's the Kabbalistic interpretation of Jesus Christ? That they say that he's empty, and that they say he is full of nothing, meaning that he did not have the Spirit of God within him? That's what they say. And now you see this reflected in their faulty world, where they're saying this is the universal symbol for no, and then they time it up with empty. And then they say set, which is interesting because they're trying to create some sort of hint of darkness when we find out that it is them that is uniting this light and dark. So if they believe Jesus is dark, why aren't they trying to unite with him? Well, it's because the only portion of Jesus they're trying to unite with is their bastard version of the image of themselves. And that would be the design that Jesus Christ has given them to exist within this conditional environment. See, they've been robbed. Nothing but robbery. So understand this. Okay? Now you see the earth has been knocked on this 23 degree. Everybody that is on this line of sight of the sacred feminine is wobbling around. They're wobbling around, and they're connected to the leap year, which is the 23 again, which is this fertility rabbit. And there's a whole bunch more to talk about that, which is specific with these individual years. But that's a whole nother video. I just want you to see that the actual wobble is due to being knocked upside the head. And now, unfortunately, people are either seeing God as a serpent or they're rejecting him because they've been told he's a serpent. But as we know, he's neither. He has created the entirety of the world and its system that surrounds. And unfortunately, they have been denied the truth of that. So, see that. That's all connected to the 23-degree tilt in the axis, which now creates the faulty perspective of the sun as being a serpent. So they either accept that sun as a serpent or they reject the son, Jesus Christ, as a serpent, depending on what level of initiation they're on. But the whole goal is to teach them this: no, that the spirit Jesus is empty, contains nothing. Wrong. Because as you see right here, it's in reflection of the spirit discernment side of reality. That's what they're trying to stop everybody from seeing. So it would be so easy to say yes to these that are going to the dark side, and yet been taught to look in a mirror and think that it was the bright side. Everything says that it's not. Even the left eye that looks in the mirror and sees a reflection of itself as the apple of the eye. Now, as you know now, that this is an apple, and that this model is accurate based upon multiple perspectives of astronomy, physiology, mental conditioning, and then symbols that are being used in our world by the system itself that is promoting propaganda based upon their agenda. And we see that people are trapped in it, being told yes, and then the truth that is being given, people are screaming, no, that guy's a devil, don't listen to him, come with us to the dark side. No thank you. Now let's look at the hemispheres of the brain. And once again, I'd like you to see here, what does it show you? The apple is the objective being sent upon the path of this crooked path of DNA, which would be rise over run. Okay, let's put it in perspective of inches. For every 12 inches of travel forward, depending on what angle you're hoping to achieve, you are going to rise 7 inches, 8 inches, 9 inches, 10 inches. In essence, based upon velocity. But just to keep it in simple terms, if you wanted a 7-degree pitch roof, what we would find for every 12 inches forward, we were going to rise 7 inches. And then when you connect that over here, that angle is created as 7 degrees, or 8 degrees, 9 degrees, 10 degrees. But nonetheless, this is also in reflection of the DNA that has been crossed, which now creates the cube, which is the square, which is really just the reflection of the sacred geometry of the darkened side being reflected as the other side, once again. Because, as we know, this represents the hemispheres of the left brain, right? So this is just a reflection of the two left brains, once again, being shown to you as the apple of temptation, which they have made people believe that there is some sort of light there, when in all actuality, they're rejecting that. They're rejecting the truth of the light and acceptance of only the darkness. So I want you to see that the apple comes the objective here in the same fractal model, okay? Same thing. It's the same thing that you're seeing right there. You know, I don't know how much more to really show you guys, but we could get you to see it right there again. And then we'll come back and talk about this here. Once again, remember the Genesis 6 point. Gene, cis. We know that cis represents the sister, the daughters of mankind. This was the crossing of the genetics. Now you see where the crossing of the genetics relates from. Yep. And It's intense because as this line of sight comes here, hits the mirror, what we find out is it reflects again off itself here. Because in between this, you're seeing the front side of a ribbon, so to say, and then the back side of that same ribbon here. In between there, there's space, which is still creating the same reflection of itself again. As I said, it's the quantum division goes pretty far. This is what creates the fractal of the equational abyss. These two images reflecting into themselves. Go to a mirror, take two mirrors and put them together. What do you see? You see a fractal that is stagnant, that's not freeform, that is symmetrical, that goes into the darkness infinitely. And that is what is the equational abyss, which means it's reflecting the darkness from both sides, the matter from both sides, without the spiritual observation of its relation to everything else. And it puts you in equational abyss. In other words, it puts you into the rabbit hole. But we'll talk about that a little later. But you should be able to follow this diagram here, that now that supposed left eye illumination is just being brought back over here to the right side, and that they're going to get the fire that they seek to send on us. And right there. Now I've got overlays of other charts and diagrams that we're going to put over this. It's going to show you some startling information. So I think that I'll go ahead and shorten this video up here. Maybe just showing you here the perspective here of this light and dark together right there. And then the lines are crossing through it. There's the light and dark there. There it is right there in our own world. You know now about the 23-degree tilt, and that it's the faulty observation. Jesus Christ says the kingdom of God cometh not with observation. Obviously not with these people that are wobbling around, that are seeing the sun as a serpent, or either rejecting it because it's a serpent when Jesus Christ is that straight and narrow. And if you're using only material discernment based upon a material world that has not been spiritually correctly defined, then you're going to find yourself on the dark side. I'll be back.